Hello, geekologists! This is Systematic Geekology. We are the priest of the geeks. I am Kevin Schaeffer, joined here with one of my fellow geekologists, Will Rose. Will, how are you?
Man, I am so good. We have over 150 subscribers on YouTube right now. So I think by the end of this conversation, we could have 300. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It could get crazy.
I think we have a good chance because with us today, good friend of mine, awesome comic book creator, podcaster. You're going to love him, Danny Quick. Danny, really excited to have you on today.
Man, thank y'all for having me. We are, in the midst of a snowstorm here in North Carolina, so I'm happy to be nice and safe and warm here in the house and talking to y'all.
Right. It's like this is the perfect day to record. We always do these virtually anyway, but yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, well, we are very excited today to have Danny talk about his comic book company and the Fourth Wall universe and some of the characters he's co-created. And we are also going to do another review of Captain America: Brave New World. If you all listened to the latest What's News episode, you know that Will and Joshua talked about it. What was that, last night, Will, that went out?
A couple nights ago. Fresh off of seeing it is what
right.
Yeah.
But I know Danny is a huge MCU fan as well and wanted to get his thoughts on the movie. So we're going to be doing about a lot of that. So I'm really excited for today's episode. And before we get into that, so Danny, we always start off episodes with kind of a lightning round of what we've been geeking out on lately. So it can be anything in regards to movies, comics, TV, podcasts, video games, anything really. By the way, can you show? I saw this on your social media the other day, but can you show off the icon figure you have in the background? Because this is like one of the new McFarlane toys. Look at that.
Ooh,
yeah, I got that. I actually bought two of these. One to open, one to keep. And I saw that they had this. I know they did Static a while back, but I didn't really like the Static figure. But this one I really liked, and I was like, I gotta get one. And McFarlane Toys they do a great job. So
definitely
had to grab that one.
Looks so good. Oh my gosh. I love the Milestone universe. Have you seen that documentary on Max, about kind of the history of Milestone?
Yeah. I watched it a couple of times. I don't remember the name of it now, but I think it was when they were doing the Milestone initiative. They were they were kind of pushing that, and that was really good. That was definitely really good. I mean, Dwayne McDuffie was ahead of his time for sure.
He's the best.
Legend.
Yeah. Well, Danny, what else are you geeking out on right now? Anything you want to give a shout out to?
Right now, I am rewatching Star Trek DS9 for the 10th time, probably. This is one of my favorite shows to rewatch. I'm not gonna say I'm a big Trekkie, but I was introduced to Star Trek through Voyager, and of course the Next Generation. But DS9, I feel like that has my favorite characters in it. I love the Ferengi Quark and Odo, the shapeshifter, and I'm rewatching that now. So that's what I'm really geeking out on. But then also, I have just recently, I've bought action figures before, but now I'm in the mindset to buy action figures. So I got the Icon there. I also got my John Stewart Green Lantern.
Oh,
McFarlane. So I feel like I'm starting to be a toy collector, even though I know that is a hobby that's too expensive for me to have. But
join the club. But yeah,
I'm enjoying it.
I a funny quick side note on that. I was ordering my nephews their birthday presents, and this was kind of a brain fart of mine, but I didn't look at the size of one of it. I got a blue Power Ranger figure, and I didn't look that it was a 3 3/4 inch one, and I was like, my nephew's not gonna want that. That's too small. The good thing is that I like toys too, so I'll keep that for myself, and then I ordered them something else. But it is a relentlessly expensive hobby, but so worth it because you could see a little bit in the back of my room, and I have a whole wall too. So it's but they just look so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I accidentally buy things for my children that I'm not sure if they're gonna like, but I know that I like them.
Exactly. It's a great backup. I
just got Stephanie the Ghost Spider. Well, it was a Spider Gwen from the Miles Morales. Oh my god, from Into the Spider Verse.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
they had Hobie, they had Gwen, and they had Miles. And I bought Miles and Gwen, but she wanted Hobie. Like so, now I have an excuse to go back and buy that one.
Yep. Gotta complete the circle there. Yeah, yeah.
There are worse
I like
things. There are worse things.
I love it, but great pick. Will, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a big Saturday Night Live fan, and I feel like over the years it's curated my sense of humor. It's a foundation and kind of how I perceive the world and my sense of humor. And the big 50th anniversary special was so much fun, and the leading up to it, and the documentaries, and diving deep into some of my favorite characters. One of my favorite podcasts, iFanboy, did a Saturday Night Live cast member fantasy draft where you could draft 7 your favorite cast members and your weekend update person, celebrity host, and listening to that just made me go down just the rabbit hole of thinking who I would draft in a fantasy draft and my favorite cast members and skits. And then Sunday night was just I had a lot of fun. It was they brought back a lot of nostalgia things, but I thought that just the host of cast and characters and celebrities who were there was just a lot of fun. So can't wait to see what the next 50 years are going to look like for Saturday Night Live.
It was a fun time. My dad and I watched it. Like, I'm saying, like, overall, I thought I'd like mixed reactions to the show as a whole. But the 2 moments that were like killer were both sketches with Eddie Murphy. He killed it in Black Jeopardy, and then in Scared Straight. That was he was by far the funniest, which I mean, unsurprisingly. And then the Adam Sandler song like really got me emotionally.
Yeah.
Like that, I was not expecting the most emotional moment of the entire show to come from Adam Sandler, but he nailed it. Yeah.
He did. And my point was like, if you can get Eddie Murphy to giggle a little bit or break character, you're doing okay in life.
You're
like,
doing
I'm
well.
like, man,
Yes.
I can't imagine those the cast members who were hanging out with him and made him break character a little bit. They're probably thinking, oh my gosh, I just made Eddie Murphy laugh. So, and then the next one, did you see Tom Hanks do the in memorandum? How do you say that? Of like the skits that didn't age well was. I thought that little twist of like, we're going to acknowledge the sketches that were racist or sexist or just problematic, and we're going to put them to bed and kill them off. And that, I thought they handled that really, really well to say, here are the sketches that didn't age well, and they're done. See you later. Bye. Cool. Was very well done.
Cool. It was a perfect play because it was like Adam Sandler's song was a better in memoriam for like actual series because like he paid tribute to Norm Macdonald and Chris Farley and everyone, and then that was a really funny like play on it. But yeah, it was a fun time. So yeah, as a side note too, in prep like I'm gonna watch that on Sunday, and then this Saturday I'm going to see Steve Martin and Martin Short live. So cannot wait for that. They're coming to DPAC, so I've had those tickets for months, so cannot wait for that. But yeah, so. Yeah, and then just quick what I'm geeking out on. I am enjoying Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. That's been a really fun time. And I'm kind of hoping that some of the ideas they have on there will translate into the main MCU Spider-Man. Because, like, it's interesting it takes place in a different timeline, but a lot of what they're doing with, like, Peter and Norman and even, like, the Daredevil episode, I want some of those ideas to manifest in the next Spider-Man movie. And I would love to see Coleman Domingo play Norman Osborn in live action. I think he's doing a fantastic job. So I have had fun with that a lot. But
I'm loving that too. It's really well done. Look forward to it. I haven't not caught up all the episodes, but that's on the schedule tonight.
Yeah. Good stuff. Sweet. Well, Danny, I know. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I hadn't seen the Saturday Night Live, 50th.
Yeah.
A lot of the clips. But I was wondering if they, did anything for like Chris Farley. I think Chris Farley would have been my number one. I think it would have been my number one pick if in that draft. Yeah, that's that guy was hilarious every single.
He's awesome.
Every single.
He was definitely on my fantasy team when I created my own fantasy draft. He was on it.
Yeah, for sure.
It was that Adam Sandler song, like it's a perfect tribute though. Yeah, so it was good. Well, Danny, I know you and I have like done this conversation many times before, talking about your creator origin. But for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, both as a comic book creator and just founding the whole Fourth Wall universe and what that entails.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we have had this conversation a couple of times, but it's me. It's Danny J. Quick. Yeah, I'm a Army veteran. I'm a husband and father, and I'm just a geek, a guy who likes superheroes. And I ended up getting deployed to Iraq in 2008, 2009. And one of the things that I did while I was there to keep my mind focused was I wrote superhero stories. I had recently co-created this character Ace Blade with a buddy of mine, and I wrote so much while I was out there that when I came back, I had almost a full novel of stories, and decided to publish them. My buddy took me to my first comic book convention, and then it literally like opened my brain to the possibility that we could actually create comic books ourselves. I was like, hey, these people, all these people here at these conventions aren't paid by Marvel and DC. Some of these people are artists who are making their own things and writers that are making their own things, and we could do that. We can make our own things. So it literally opened my eyes to the possibilities, and from that moment on, I knew I was supposed to be making comic books and telling superhero stories. So here we are, a lot of years later, and we're still doing it.
Still doing it, and another Kickstarter now too, which we'll link that in the description. But this is Ace Blade number 9, correct?
9. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Nine books. And that's the more and more I do this, I realize I need to take time and say, yo, that's an accomplishment. Just 9 books, even though my goal is like 150 books, but 9 books is an accomplishment. And if we get to this 10th book, I think it's going to be a really big milestone for us.
Well, so it's 9 Ace Blade books, but then you have the whole Fourth Wall universe too with all these other characters. So you're already well on your way to that number.
Absolutely. We're having a good time with it.
Danny, I love that. Like here at Systematic Ecology, in terms of we're all story junkies. We love whether it's anime or manga or comic book graphic novels, all those things, and just huge geeks. And so we're glad to promote like an indie writer, a local writer, someone in our neighborhood who are just trying to create cool stories. Was there like a writer or a superhero that was like an influence for you that you grew up with? You're like, this is someone I look up to that I hope I could do something like this later on. Was there something that, or a book or a storyline that kind of you cut your teeth on or really sparked that imagination that you wanted to be a creator of your own?
Yeah, I think we talked about him, Dwayne McDuffie, man. He, I think even before I knew who Dwayne McDuffie was, I knew who Jon Stewart was. I knew Static. Nice. I knew those characters, and their stories were very impactful. Like they were. I love superhero stories. I love Leonardo and Donatello. I love Ninja Turtles. I love Batman and Superman. But there was something about the stories that Jon Stewart's Green Lantern was in that were very compelling and kind of drama filled, especially on Justice League Unlimited. And I didn't know that it was Dwayne McDuffie who was telling those stories at the time, but when I found out who he was, it made perfect sense. And those kind of stories, stuck with me for a long time, and because of that, I knew that I wanted to tell stories that would also teach people and empower people, and kind of let them learn things without kind of forcing it down their throats.
Yeah, I love that. And Jon Stewart's not that far away from being in the DC universe and James Gunn, and I think that Green Lantern TV show or movie. Yep. Kevin, you may know more about that.
Yeah, it's a series. Right, it is. It'll be a series with Hal and John. I know it's in development. I don't know if they have a premiere date or anything. I would think sometime next year would be my guess, but because the Green Lanterns will be introduced in the Superman movie with Guy Gardner, which is funny because he's like the worst Green Lantern, but I think that's very much a Gunn choice to do that. And then he's talked about the Lantern series like it'll be almost like True Detective in space, which I'm all for that. Yeah. And especially having an older Hal Jordan, and I know Jon Stewart will be played by Aaron Pierre, which is, we saw Rebel Ridge, one of the best movies of last year. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. Yeah. So I think he's well on his way to you're already like one of the upcoming big names right now, just in TV and movies. So he'll do great in that. But yeah. But I love how you bring that up about how like Dwayne McDuffie was someone you were constantly influenced by and didn't even know their name. Like it was, I mean, he was such a big part of my childhood because I mean, I grew up on Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and the whole DC animated universe, and he was one of the key architects of that.
Right.
And of course with Static Shock, and he was so prolific. He also did Ben 10. He did so much in the worlds of comics animation, and I think it was in that Milestone documentary. I think it was his wife talked about like before he passed, like he was on his way to writing like feature length screenplays for big movies. I mean, he would have done he already did so much in his lifetime and was taken way too soon, but he would have done even more and probably would have been like one of the biggest writers, I imagine, today, had he lived. But he was just so fundamental to a ton of DC and Marvel stuff, you know, when I was growing up.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Danny, another question. I geek out on how the sausage is made when it comes to comics and stuff. So when you were writing, like how long was it but when you had like a German of an idea and then writing on paper to your Kickstarter and having it like a physical copy in somebody's hands? What was how long was that? And then how did you stay focused? How did you stay focused on the dream?
Man, I'll tell you that the first Kickstarter that we did was such a learning process. Like we did the Kickstarter, you know, we had the story already written, but I didn't know anything about making comics at the time. I didn't know anything about it. So we literally, the first comic book we did for the Kickstarter, we got Neil Adams to do a variant cover. We thought that we were like, oh, this is just gonna be a huge thing that people are gonna buy and love and find somehow, you know. And I didn't even know how to make a comic book. So we had the Neil Adams variant cover, but we had no book. We didn't have a book because I hadn't found an artist. I wanted to get Jimbo Saldago to do the art. You know, he's a professional he was drawing Transformers at the time. You know, he was like, his prices were way out of my range. I didn't even think, you know, just the stuff that I didn't even think about, you know. But thankfully he had a, you know, friend who was trying to get into making comic books, who was an awesome artist, you know, and he did it for, you know, in our budget. Then I had to learn formatting, and I literally learned lettering myself because I couldn't afford to pay anybody to do it at the time. And I was, you know, already trained as a graphic designer. So it was a natural, you know, natural input for me. But from the Kickstarter to putting out the book was 2 years. Like it took 2 years to make that first book and get it out to people. And of course, by that time, I had to regain that audience. I had to refine those people. But we did get it done, you know, and, you know,
The Kickstarter took 2 years, not the story, like writing and all that, but the actual Kickstarter.
No, so the Kickstarter, we wrote the story before the Kickstarter. Yeah. We launched the Kickstarter for 30 days. We raised the money to get the book made. But then it took us 2 years from there to get the first issue actually out to people.
And I've heard similar stories to that. That's not uncommon. And a friend of mine, and Lee, shout out to Lee, who's wants to do the same with some characters and writing and putting in a graphic. Now we're brainstorming Kickstarter, so I'm gonna have to maybe have coffee, since you're right down the road. Danny and I are gonna have coffee, and he can tutor us around that, making those connections. But I think that's good for like people who have the dream of creating their own story, even if it's like a handful of their friends that have a comic book in their hand or a story. It's a long process. It takes time. There's a learning curve and all those things. I know it probably wasn't easy, but that is therapeutic to me to hear that from you, to say that, like, if you're going to create anything, it's going to take time and effort and learning along the way.
Absolutely. And learning those things has been kind of my favorite parts. Like I've learned that there are things I enjoy, there are things that I don't enjoy the logistics of like shipping books and keeping track of who paid for things and then getting to people. That part I don't enjoy, but literally everything from idea to story, art, you know, inks, colors, lettering, publishing. I love all of that stuff. And I'm glad to have been able to learn over the years. And I'm proud to say that we've cut the production time down from 2 years to about 6 months. So
there you go.
That's good.
Well, what's like the elevator pitch for Ace Blade? If somebody says, "Hey, what is Ace Blade about?" or what's the log line that you give them? They're like, "Here's the character. What's the log line?"
I'm still working on it, but my go-to is usually something like, imagine you believe you're the best fighter in the world, but the only way to prove it is to put on a mask and fight against supervillains in Vegas City, when you don't have any superpowers. So Terrell Durham is Ace Blade, the Vegas Vigilante. It's a vigilante superhero comic, but it's just about a man who wants to help in his community. He had the goal to prove that he was the best, but then found out that he could use his fist to help people in his community, and that's what he decided to do.
Fantastic.
And Danny, go ahead. No, you're good. Go ahead.
I'm still working on the pitch, but I got to get it down to 2 or 3 sentences. But that's pretty much what I usually say to people.
Having read the issues, like, I think that's a pretty solid pitch for the character. It's and it's such a cool design too. Like the purple suit, the sword, everything. Like it's just like it is so like when you combine it with, I think that's a solid pitch there. And it just like it's very appealing to anyone who's a fan of superheroes and vigilantes. And we've talked about the influence of like Batman and Daredevil and I think in the Milestone universe. But can you also talk about how like Ace Blade was kind of like your front runner, main character? How did the Fourth Wall universe expand from that point? Because now you've got all these other characters and other writers and artists working with you. And it's really cool to see like your own little MCU. Yeah.
Man, I think, it's just kind of a natural progression. I think the one thing that we learned in comics is that if you have a book that people like, that you should use that to, start the other books. We've seen over the years, I think Black Panther first premiered in the Fantastic Four and, Spider-Man, like all these comic books that we now love started in some other property. So we can't put out, a comic book every month like Marvel and DC can, but we can, make content online. We can do podcasts. We can, tell literally we can do short stories and do cool things online to introduce characters. And we've been able to find that, there are stories that we want to tell that maybe Ace Blade can't tell. There may be things that we want to say or tell to people that Ace Blade doesn't quite fit. So thankfully, we got King Supreme for that. We got Lumberjacks. We got Queen Zajay coming out. We got A Matter of Shadows. We got other stories within the same universe where we can kind of explore kind of the darker stuff, or maybe more spiritual, or maybe, concepts of fate and morality and things like that. And, we're trying not to go too fast and go too wide with it, because we know we got to have a balance of being able to produce these comics and sell them. I don't know why Star and Ripper are whining right now, but they are.
Real life, real people, real dogs. You're not the first person to be on our podcast. Even our editor-in-chief, Joshua, has a dog that sometimes howls. So that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to do.
I love them to death. They're great pets. But they definitely want to make sure people know that they're there. But yeah, no, we've been able to, assemble a team of people, who are also passionate storytellers. And, because I went through the process of having to learn how to make these things, now they don't necessarily have to learn every piece of it. They can say, hey, I need to find an artist, and I can help them find an artist. Or I can, they're like, hey, I need a letterer. Hey, I letter, that's an expense that you can, that I can take on for you. I don't mind lettering the book, and either you pay me on the back end, or, I just don't get paid for this one. It's really about just building a community of people that want to tell cool stories and, helping each other, try to get these stories out in front of people.
And I love that too, that like, I know we talked about it when I interviewed you on a previous podcast I did called the Wednesday Lounge. We were talking about that, the idea of using multimedia storytelling to expand, or because like you said, it takes so long to produce a comic as an independent creator. And so it's like, but you want to keep writing. And so that's how you started doing podcasts and prose stories, so that you're continuing, keeping yourselves motivated as storytellers and making sure you're still creating, in that intermittent time between producing another comic. And also it just like keeps fans engaged who are really invested in your universe. So it's a very smart Kevin Feige kind of mentality. So like I like I've like and it's a lot, but I commend you for taking that initiative.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, we know that again, like every step of the way I've learned something about, either marketing or storytelling or something. And like I said, that 2 year period that it took me to get that first comic book out, we lost interest from a lot of people. People were excited about it. They were excited about it. We were able to get that first Kickstarter funded, and people were excited about it. But 2 years goes by, and we don't have anything, to give them in that time. Of course, you're going to lose people. So, we decided to do the Super Shorts podcast, and just do like little in between stories, stuff that might not be able to be made into a comic book, but gives you a little background on the characters, a little story to get, just a peek into the mind of the villain from the series. And we decided that we wanted to make sure that everything was connected. Everything that we put out is canon, to the universe. So, that has been able to help us keep the interest going, and to keep people engaged in between comic releases. And it's been working so far. And if we can get a little help from the algorithms, I think we'll be fine. But we'll see.
Isn't that the number one enemy of any creator? Is algorithms developed by just mindless corporate? Yeah.
It's terrible right now,
but the hustle's real, because I mean, just in terms of like going to Comic Cons, I mean, even like getting our name out there with Systematic Ecology, we want to share our stuff and get people out there in the world. We feel like we have a good podcast and create healthy conversation around these things. But yeah, we'll maybe next fall, we'll team up and do a panel at NC Comic Con or wherever you are, to kind of cross pollinate and do those things. I think that's important. If you feel like you have a good product, how do you get attention from a crowded market? You can start small with your friends and loved ones, but then also like, hey, this is a good story, and if people like it, they'll catch on. I think that's cool.
Nothing so far has ever been able to replace getting in front of people who love comic books. Like I went out to Acme Comics in Greensboro last weekend, and like literally they let me sit there and tell people about the Kickstarter. They let me, bring some books to sell. And people who love comic books, they will support. You know what I'm saying? If you can get in front of them, they will support. So doing the conventions, doing shows, doing in stores and stuff like that is almost irreplaceable. I wish I had more time to do more stuff like that. But it's it's definitely important.
100%. I love it. This is perfect sound effects. Honestly, the pets making a cameo. It's perfect.
Well, speaking of MCU and following their footsteps, and Feige, Danny, have you seen Brave New World? We're not going to spoil anything for you tonight by talking about it.
I have seen it. I don't know if you can see my poster up there that I got on the
wall. There it is.
Yeah,
a little Red Hulk action.
I bought my tickets. Going to the movies has become very expensive, but
yes, it has.
Especially because we have a family of 6 here. Me and my wife, we have 4 children, and I love to take them. When it's an MCU movie, I'm taking everybody. I'm taking everybody to see it because I want to experience it together. And we had a really good time in the theater watching Captain America,
nice.
Brave New World. And I'll tell you something that I really enjoyed about it is my wife. She did not know that Red Hulk was in the movie. She did not know that Harrison Ford was going to be Red Hulk. Like she probably has come down here and has seen the poster, but she didn't, in her mind, she didn't, she just didn't put 2 and 2 together because she doesn't really care about comic book stuff that much. But in the theater, sitting beside me, she had the most genuine, reaction to seeing, Harrison Ford becoming the Red Hulk. She was so excited. That final battle, she was so engaged and excited, and she really loved it. And that's something that you just can't get from everyday entertainment. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie. It had I did a short review, and I said it was probably the worst Captain America movie, but the other 3 Captain America movies are in my top 10, and I have a lot of nostalgia for the first Avenger. So it's probably just as good as the first Avenger, but to me, I really love that movie. So
I agree. Like that trilogy of First Avenger, Captain Winter Soldier and Civil War. Like that trilogy is probably my favorite trilogy of the single
Yeah.
superheroes within the MCU. So it's hard to beat that. I think it's a Sarah Joshua. It's a solid Cap movie. It's a solid comic book movie. It's called Brave New World. I don't know how brave it was or how new it was, but in terms of the greater MCU and take it to the next phase. But
it was in a world. It was
but
in a world.
in its world, I really enjoyed it. And I was telling Kevin earlier that, like, you know, if I can say, like, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing that again, or that's rewatchable, then that's a good grade on my book. So this is definitely something I want to see. Kevin, our systematic ecology fans don't know your take yet, so go at it. What's your take? How do you rate it? Will you see it again? You got your pint glass there. I see it.
All right, gotta show this off. Gotta give a shout out to Alamo Draft House, because the pint glasses that they sell there are the best, and this one I could not pass up on because it's got like 2 drawings of Sam on there and then Red Hulk, so I was very happy with that. But I quite enjoyed it as well. I was very much looking forward to this one. I really liked Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I'm still kind of surprised by a lot of the negative reception to that one, because I think that is one of the better shows. In some ways, that could have been a movie, but I really liked the themes it tackled. I liked how it expanded on the relationship between Sam and Bucky, and especially the Isaiah Bradley stuff. Carl Lumbly deserved an Emmy for that. I love to see him back here. And that was all, really stellar. I think the main takeaway for this movie, it solidified that Sam should have been the face of the MCU post Endgame, and they've been sitting on that for way too long. He was the obvious choice because when you look at a lot of the criticisms of post Endgame MCU, it's like, oh, it's disjointed. There's not really a unifying theme or a kind of narrative. There's been good stories and good characters, but there's not really anything to draw together. And when you look at everything leading up to Endgame, yes, they had a different a number of characters, a number of solo movies, whatnot, but the core trio kind of keeping everything interwoven was Cap, Iron Man, and Thor. And when all of them either retired or were deceased by Endgame, they needed a new face. And it was right there all along. They passed the mantle to Sam at the end of Endgame. So why it's taken this long is beyond me. But I really hope that they make this because Anthony Mackie is so great. Sam, I think, and Will and Joshua hit on this a lot in their review. But I think what makes Sam so relatable is that he is the most human of the Steve is such an idealistic character and has these ultimate ideals and is a symbol of hope, and he's great. But by definition, he is from a different time, and he instills old school values in people. Whereas Sam is at his core a counselor. He's so human. He's so relatable. And I think, and that's what he uses to his strengths in this movie. It's his humanity, his vulnerability, right down to the ending fight sequence after, which I also like too, that, because I was wondering even going into the movie, I'm like, how are they going to explain, when they eventually get to the fight between him and Red Hulk, he's not a super soldier, so how is he going to stand 30 seconds? I like that they gave him Wakanda technology to amp his, that made sense, and it didn't feel gimmicky or anything like that. That was actually perfect. So I liked what they did with the fight there. It was fun. Yes. Enhanced wings and everything. It was a cool fight. But yeah, so I very much enjoyed it. There are certainly I think one of the things I said coming out of theater was, yeah, and especially with looking at the credits, I'm yeah, you could definitely tell there were way too many writers in the room. And even with that many people on the script, there was still some ridiculously corny dialogue throughout. Even for instance, I love Tim Blake Nelson, and I felt it was kind of cool to bring the leader back, but they gave him the worst dialogue by far. And it was I was cringing there. And through a lot of other stuff, but and so there were elements there where it was this isn't quite working, but still enjoyed it overall. I know Joshua, he had made some really good points. I do encourage listeners to go check out that review on the What's News episode. But I do agree with Will, though, and more that I think it still could have leaned harder into its political themes, because I'm especially with the title and with everything they set up from Falcon and Winter Soldier, they still did a lot, but they also, I think, could have leaned harder and harder into particularly how relevant this movie is to today and our political climate and to the polarization in our society. And I just wish they had taken a bolder stance on a lot of things and not worried about being appealing to everyone. If you're going to piss off some people, I don't care. I mean, like, it's not like they're hammering for money right now. So I think they could have leaned a little harder into that. For instance, like the scene that annoyed me was when toward the beginning, when they're on the way to the White House and like Isaiah Bradley rightfully declines at the beginning, and then Sam and Joaquin kind of convince him to go along. And I hated that, like, they're in the limo on the way to the White House, and Sam's like, "Oh man, this is awesome! We have all the best friends." I'm like, okay, you would have been more reluctant, knowing that. So, like, I get wanting to because of his character and because like he is Cap and he wants to try to ease tensions and hopefully work toward a better future with Ross. But nonetheless, he's not going to be all gung ho 1 minute and then against him the next. Like, there should have been more reluctance there. But nonetheless, I mean, I think the movie felt very much like a 90s thriller and had some B-movie tropes that made it really fun. I had a great time throughout. I would definitely see it again. Action sequences are really strong. But yes, there were just elements where it's like, okay, there was obviously reshoots here. There's like, this is totally green screen, which like contradicted a lot of the really well executed action sequences. But I also, yeah, I mean, again, I love Sam. I like the relationship between him and Joaquin a lot. They're a great pair going forward. I definitely want to see Sam lead the new Avengers. So it's got a lot to look forward to. I agree, Daniel, with you. Probably like the least of the Captain America movies, but that, again, that's only saying that because they are all top 10, top 5 MCU movies. So it's a hard bar to do. But I definitely put it up a lot above a lot of other MCU movies. And I thought Harrison Ford did a great job too. Even though, like, one of the best marketing was when a journalist asked him a while ago if Red Hulk was gonna, or he was gonna be Red Hulk, and he was like, "Who's Red Hulk?" Which is quintessentially Harrison Ford. So overall, I quite enjoyed it. I would definitely see it again, and like it's got its quips for sure. But yeah, again, like I've got a Sam figure over on my desk, and I got the pint glass. Like, I want to see a lot more of Sam Wilson.
Danny, I'm curious. All right, you took your whole family. They go to see MC Universe. What was the conversation on the way home in terms of processing as a family? What was the mood or the vibe on the way home reviewing this movie?
They all genuinely enjoyed it. The one thing that we do as a family, or I do as a for the family, is I always ask them what was their favorite part of the movie, and it was cool because everybody had a different favorite part. Like, my wife, of course, she loved the Red Hulk. My son, he loved the aerial, the scenes, specifically the, I don't want to spoil the movie, but there was a specific thing that he did with one of the rockets that was really cool. Like, there was a lot of different parts that were really cool, and they just had fun. Like, and that's what we go to the movies for. We go out to have a good time, and we had a good time at the movies, and that's not something that always happens. So, like, when we went to see Multiverse of Madness, I didn't have a good time, and it was one of those that I didn't like, and I was like, I don't need to see this movie again. But we had a really good time seeing the movie, and of course I'm gonna go see it again. Probably me and DJ will go see it again. But the one thing I was gonna say, yes, the Falcon and Winter Soldier was great. And the one thing I wish that they included in this movie that they didn't was Sam's sister and nephews. Like, they brought a lot of heart to that show. And I think even though it was a jam-packed movie, I think if they would have included them in there, it would have gave them a little more, motivation. And also I wish they would have did a practical effect for the leader, because the CGI was, I didn't think was great on that.
I was
sorry, like that.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The Isaiah Bradley, like his nephew, who
Mhm.
is in the comics the Patriot and Young Avengers, and you've been building up all these Young Avengers. I was like, just like 5 minutes with him to go like, hey, granddad, like why are you going to go to the president? Like just
Right, yeah.
questioning, like, don't do this. Like you got to have a couple scenes of him getting dressed in a suit or whatever, and being like, hey, what's going on? Or tease that maybe that would be the end credit scene or so. Anyway, I was disappointed we didn't see Eli, and because I really want to see a Young Avengers, and I think they could, with the right writer, could really nail that, especially if they're going to build it, because it was no secret that because they spoiled it at San Diego Comic-Con, that there's going to be another Avengers movie, that Doctor Doom's coming around the corner, that there are Ultimate Worlds. It's like, that's no big spoiler, surprises, shock moments when we're in the theater. So why not lean into that braver and newer aspect? But I know it's jam-packed, a lot of writers in the room, that kind of stuff. Those are some of the things that overall, a lot of little nitpicks that I brought my own expectations to. But yeah, I hear you. And how about that new kind of Black Widow or Widow Ruth? She was so tiny and yet kicked so much ass.
Mini Widow. Yeah, she was very small, but hey, they brought her in
she
there.
was awesome.
She definitely kicked some
her
in there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Danny, I 100% agree with you about the leader. Like that was so. They could have done so much. Like he's a naturally over the top kind of corny villain. Like I remember him from the '90s Hulk cartoon, especially. And he's got like the big head and everything. But it just, I think it was a friend, a coworker said it perfectly. It was like it was an unpleasant corniness and ridiculous. Like it was just like you don't want to look. I'm like, this was just bad. Like it wasn't just like, okay, they were going for like a B movie aesthetic. It just did not look fun. I was like, come on. And again, Tim Blake Nelson, great actor. They could have done better with that. So I agree there that they needed a redo on the makeup and the CG there.
Yeah. My wife leaned in and says, he looks familiar. What do I know him from? I was like, we thought you were a Toad from Brother, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? She's like, yeah, that's him. And I'm like, yeah. So that was fun. I gave my 7.9 review and then bumped it to 8 after hearing Joshua's pitch. But if you guys had to go like 1 to 10, where'd you put it in there? We know we kind of ranked the Captain America movie stuff, but like where would you rank it? Where would you rank it on if they're going to give you 10 stars to throw at it or not?
I'd go around 7.5. I'd give it a nice 7.5. I think that's a respectable score for it, for sure.
Nice.
I was thinking around there as well, like right between a 7 and 8. Like again, would definitely rewatch. I would see it in theater again. The script was messy at parts, but consistently enjoyable. So yeah.
Yeah. And, the X-Men fan in mind, like, look, y'all, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie yet and it says, let's talk about Brave New World, there's going to be spoilers. Antimantium, come on. Like, here we go. Like, I'm so excited. Let's get that medal. We're building towards X-Men, where that universe. And as much as, I had problems with the Eternals, it was cool to see that they're tying that in there, and that was a part of this movie, and that the world's not just ignoring this thing out in the ocean. And then the fighter jet parts and them flying as far, there's some really fun movements in here. And if you're a big time comic geek and know what those kind of words are, those little Easter eggs, it's your spidey sense is tingling when it comes to hearing some of those words lifted up.
To your point, I mean, I know Eternals got a lot of criticism, but still, with an ending like that, you cannot ignore that forever, whether you like the movie or not. It was just, this is where a lot of the criticisms for the MCU have been in the last few years of like, they'll set up these big things and then never come back to it. I was glad that they finally returned to that and addressed that, like, okay, there's this big mega event right here, and it's fitting that the president would address that in some way. So
it was a great set piece too. Like for them to be flying around it, like that was really cool. I said, that was one of the best, action scenes in the film. And I was genuinely, I'll say, as for the Cap Hulk fight, I was genuinely scared for Anthony Mackie at times. Like that fight was legit scary, even though of course in your mind that Captain America is going to come out okay. But I was like, this guy does not have any superpowers. This vibranium is not holding up the way it should be.
love it.
But yeah, it was definitely good.
Cool.
That's
Super fun, y'all. Well, as we kind of land this Falcon, Danny, how can people find you? Where do they follow you? How do they engage with all that you're doing and creating out in the world?
Yeah, best place to find me is my website, fourthwallpros.com. And if you want to get me on social media, it's at the Ace Blade on all social media platforms. And if you just search for Ace Blade on Kickstarter, you'll find me.
Nice. Well, Systematic Ecology will follow you, follow us back. We'll share that stuff when this episode comes out. We'll collaborate and let people know to support their local creator and artist. And man, I love comics, and I will definitely contribute and hop right in and look forward to seeing you at the next Comic-Con too. We'll be there as a group too.
Absolutely. Thank y'all again for having me, man. It's always good talking to you, Kevin, and nice to meet you.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Danny, it was a blast. I remember, because we met initially through a podcast years ago, and so I always love recording with you. We'll definitely do more at Comic-Con. And yes, for our listeners out there, please go support the Kickstarter. And also, before we wrap up, is there any recommendation you guys want to give related to this topic or anything else?
Go read the source material for Brave New World, like whether it's Red Hulk or Sam as Cap, and there's so many good stories out there with that they build this upon. And if you like this movie or like his character in Enduring Nature, I mean, the Falcon's been around a long time as a character, but then making him Cap and taking on that mantle and symbol, I think is really important. And there's a lot of good stories out there. So go check it out. That's what I would do. Go to your local comic shop and find the source material.
Yeah.
I'll say this is not necessarily Captain America, but I think in this upcoming Superman film, Mr. Terrific is going to be in that, and they just announced that there's going to be a new Mr. Terrific series coming out. So I would definitely tell people to look out for that, because I think that's a character that's kind of under the radar, and Mr. Terrific is definitely worth. He's got some good stories.
Excellent pick. And Danny, since you talked about Dwayne McDuffie earlier, I want to recommend, I've got it over in the corner, but there is a DC hardcover called The DC Universe by Dwayne McDuffie, which is a collection of some of his best DC stories in there. So it's got a Superman one, an Etrick and the Demon. Who else is on there? I read it a while ago. Let's see, Batman, Black and White, and Impulse. It's an excellent collection. So a lot of his stories that were written in 90s, early 2000s. So that is a gorgeous hardcover. Highly recommend. Sweet.
Cool.
Well,
Kevin,
everyone,
land this plane. Yeah. Land it.
Yes, let's do it.
Get on that aircraft carrier.
I am riding right now. Hopefully it won't crash. But Geekologists, we want to thank you all for listening. Please support our Patreon, follow us on YouTube. Again, remember, if this video or any other video on YouTube gets 50 likes, we'll do something to the degree of either frolicking through a field of flowers, perhaps dancing in the snow. He will do something to that degree. So all you have to do is hit the like button on any YouTube video, and we get enough, we will make that happen. So definitely support us. We want to appreciate all of our Patreons, and yeah, like, share, review the show. And remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.